Ever watched your dog spin in circles, dig at their bed, and scratch at blankets for what feels like forever before finally lying down? You probably think it's just some quirky habit, but what's actually happening goes back thousands of years. And the real reason they do it reveals something about your dog's mind that most owners completely miss. Once you understand what's driving this behavior, you'll never look at bedtime the same way again. Your dog isn't being difficult. They're running ancient code that kept their ancestors alive. And that nightly routine you've been watching, it's speaking a language you were never taught to hear. First, let's talk about what everyone gets wrong. Most people assume dogs circle and dig because they're trying to get comfortable, like fluffing a pillow before you sleep. Sounds logical, except that explanation falls apart the second you think about what comfort actually means to a dog versus what it meant to a wolf 15,000 years ago. A wolf sleeping in the wild wasn't worried about thread count. They were worried about survival. Every single action they took before lying down served a specific purpose: creating a safe zone, regulating temperature, detecting threats. Your dog inherited every bit of that programming, and it fires up every single night, whether they're on a memory foam bed or your expensive couch. Here's what's really happening when your dog starts that digging motion. They're not trying to make the surface softer. They're performing a temperature regulation ritual. In the wild, canines would dig into dirt or snow to reach layers that were cooler in summer or warmer in winter. That scratching motion your dog does on their bed, that's them trying to uncover a more comfortable thermal layer, even though they're scratching polyester, not earth. The circling behavior is even more calculated than you think. Dogs don't just spin randomly. Watch closely next time. Most dogs circle in a specific direction, usually counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere. Some researchers believe this relates to the Earth's magnetic field. A study from the Czech University of Life Sciences found that dogs prefer to align their body on a north-south axis when they rest. That circling isn't aimless wandering, it's calibration. But there's another reason for all that movement before settling, one that goes deeper than temperature or magnetic fields. Your dog is checking for threats. In the wild, tall grass hides predators, snakes hide in underbrush. Before a wolf could afford to close their eyes, they needed to be absolutely certain nothing dangerous was lurking in their chosen spot. All that pawing, circling, and sniffing, that's a security sweep. Think about what sleep means in terms of vulnerability. When your dog lies down and drifts off, their reaction time drops, their awareness dims. They become an easy target. Every wild canine that survived long enough to pass on genes was one that checked their sleeping area obsessively before allowing themselves to rest. Your dog carries those exact instincts, running the same protocol their ancestors ran when survival was never guaranteed. Now here's where it gets interesting. The intensity of this behavior can tell you something about how safe your dog actually feels in your home. A dog who does a quick circle and immediately flops down, that's a dog with zero anxiety about their environment. They trust the space completely. But a dog who circles repeatedly, digs aggressively, and takes several minutes to settle, they're telling you something. Maybe there's a noise they keep hearing that you've tuned out. Maybe there's a scent pattern that's unfamiliar. Their ancient alarm system is detecting something, even if you can't. Some dogs take this ritual to extremes. They'll circle a dozen times, rearrange blankets obsessively, move from spot to spot. Owners often assume this is just personality, like their dog is particular or high maintenance. But what if your dog is actually responding to something concrete that you're not equipped to perceive? Dogs process sensory information in ways that are completely invisible to us. They hear frequencies we can't detect. They smell chemical changes in the air that don't register in our world. I had a dog who would dig at her bed every night for exactly 47 seconds. I timed it. Then one day she stopped, just walked over and lay down immediately. Turns out the neighbour's HVAC system had been making a sound at a frequency I couldn't hear, and they'd just replaced it. My dog wasn't being obsessive. She was reacting to something real that existed outside my sensory range. This is the part most owners never consider. We assume our dogs are being weird or difficult when they won't settle. We get impatient watching them circle and dig. But from their perspective, they're doing exactly what they need to do to feel secure enough to enter a vulnerable state. Sleep isn't casual for them, it's a calculated risk. And here's something that'll shift how you see this entire behavior. The nesting ritual isn't just about the dog, it's also about the pack. Because when wolves prepared a sleeping area, they weren't just making it safe for themselves. They were creating a shared space where the entire pack could rest together, protected by the collective vigilance of the group. Your dog isn't preparing their bed, they're preparing a den. And whether you realize it or not, you're part of that den. That's why some dogs won't settle until you're also in position for sleep. They're waiting for the pack to be complete before they allow themselves to fully relax, which means this seemingly simple behavior is actually a deeply social act. Your dog isn't just checking for threats or creating comfort. They're performing a ritual that says, "This is where we belong together." Watch what happens when you change something in their environment. Move their bed to a new room, and suddenly the nesting behavior intensifies. They're not being stubborn. They're recalibrating their entire security assessment. Every new location means new variables, different entry points, unfamiliar sounds, changed sightlines. Your dog has to run the full analysis again from scratch. Some breeds take this further than others. Terriers, bred to hunt prey underground, often dig with an intensity that seems excessive. They're not misbehaving. They're activating instincts that were specifically selected for over generations. Herding breeds might circle more, positioning themselves with a strategic view of the room. Sled dogs sometimes scratch at smooth floors as if trying to move snow that isn't there. But here's what connects all of them. Every single dog, regardless of breed or background, is trying to answer the same fundamental question before they sleep. Am I safe enough here to stop watching? That's the question driving every circle, every dig, every repositioning. And the answer they're looking for doesn't come from logic. It comes from instinct, from senses we barely understand, from calculations happening in parts of their brain that existed long before humans ever entered the picture. Now think about what this means for how you respond to this behavior. Most owners either ignore it completely or actively discourage it. They get frustrated when their dog takes forever to settle. They pull them away from scratching at blankets. They rush the process because it's bedtime and they're tired. But what if you did the opposite? What if you gave your dog the time and space to complete their ritual fully, without interference or impatience? Not because you're indulging them, but because you understand what they're actually doing. They're not being difficult. They're being a dog. I started paying attention to this with my own dog differently after I understood what was happening. Instead of hurrying her through it, I just watched. And I noticed something I'd missed for years. She wasn't circling randomly. She was checking specific points in a specific order. Door, window, corner where two walls meet, back to the center. Every single night, same sequence. She was running a perimeter check, and once she confirmed each point was secure, only then would she allow herself to lie down. The entire ritual took maybe 90 seconds. But those 90 seconds meant the difference between restless sleep and deep rest. Here's something else that matters. The way your dog completes this ritual can actually tell you about their stress levels in general. A dog who suddenly starts nesting more intensely than usual might be picking up on something. Maybe there's been a change in the household they're processing. Maybe they're not feeling well, and their vulnerability instinct is heightened. Maybe something in the environment shifted that you haven't noticed yet. Pay attention to changes in the pattern. A dog who normally circles twice but suddenly circles 8 times is communicating something. They're not being random or quirky. They're showing you their internal state through the only language they have. And if you really want to support this behavior, instead of fighting it, give them options, multiple textures, blankets they can manipulate, a bed with sides they can push against. Dogs aren't trying to be high maintenance when they demand specific sleeping conditions. They're trying to recreate the den security their ancestors relied on for survival. Some dogs will even create a nest and then not use it. They'll spend 5 minutes preparing a spot, circle into position, then stand up and walk away to sleep somewhere else entirely. Owners find this maddening, but think about what just happened. Your dog ran their security protocol, found something they didn't like, and made a tactical decision to relocate. That's not indecision. That's threat assessment. The wildest part? This behavior never fully disappears, even in dogs who've lived in the same safe home their entire lives. You'd think after years of sleeping in the same spot with zero incidents. A dog would stop checking, but they don't, because the instinct isn't based on experience or logic. It's hardwired at a level that doesn't update based on evidence. Your dog could sleep in the same corner for 10 years straight, and on night 3651, they'll still circle and dig before lying down. Not because they've forgotten it's safe, because their DNA is running a program that's older than cities, older than agriculture, older than the entire concept of a domestic pet. So the next time you watch your dog spin in circles before bed, you're not watching a quirk. You're watching evolutionary history play out in real time. You're seeing a survival mechanism that kept their ancestors alive in a world where sleep meant vulnerability and vulnerability meant death. And somehow, despite thousands of years of safety and comfort, that ancient protocol still runs every single night, because some things are too important to ever stop checking. Understanding this changes everything. Your dog isn't being difficult or particular when they nest before sleep. They're honoring an ancient contract written into their DNA, one that kept their species alive for millennia. So give them those extra seconds. Let them complete the ritual, because in their world, those circles and scratches aren't optional. They're survival.